And on behalf of everyone on the board, we'd just like to thank you for your support as we continue to host our monthly luncheons virtually. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We did receive a few email kickbacks come through this month due to some potential firewall settings from certain organizations. So if you can, if you want to log into your Eventbrite account and add your personal email, that will just ensure that you continue to get emails from us monthly. At the end of Lynn's presentation, we will offer a Q&A session. So if you would like to submit your questions via the chat box, we can get those to her and then she can get them answered for you. We will put a replay of this presentation on our YouTube channel. So if you do have to leave early or if you wanted to share this with someone, please refer to our YouTube channel for a replay of this. And then we will also be doing a book drawing at the end of Lynn's presentation on the book that she recommended, which is Who Moved My Cheese? We would like to recognize and give a special shout out to this month's sponsor, which is West River Timing and Scoring. They have invited Robin Albers here today, who's going to speak briefly about the American Heart Association. So Robin, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the American Heart Association?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to join you and to share a little bit about the American Heart Association and our work and ways that you can get involved. The American Heart Association is the nation's oldest and largest voluntary health organization dedicated to fighting heart disease and stroke. We were founded in 1924 by 6 cardiologists, and our mission is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. How do we do that? The American Heart Association works in many ways to improve cardiovascular health for everyone. Of course, scientific research has been a cornerstone of our work since the beginning, and we are the single largest funder of cardiovascular disease outside of the federal government. We have funded 13 Nobel Prizes and many life-saving research advancements, including cholesterol-lowering drugs, heart transplants, artificial heart valves, and CPR. We're the nation's leader in CPR education and training, and locally we work with CPR training centers like the hospital in Western Dakota Tech to offer these classes. The American Heart Association also provides science-based treatment guidelines for healthcare professionals in hospitals to give them help give them quality care to their patients. Monument Health, for example, has received awards for their work with our Get With the Guidelines program, most notably the Elite Gold Plus Achievement Award for their work in stroke. And recently, they also adopted the Get With the Guidelines program for atrial fibrillation. And another way we work with our communities is through advocacy. We work. Oh, I think you just muted me. Are we good?
You're good.
Okay. Our advocacy work happens both at the federal and the local level. And in the last couple of years, we've successfully advocated at the federal level to remove flavored tobacco products, vaping products that target our teen and youth, and to protect patients from surprise medical billing, as well as to advocate for additional heart and stroke research by the CDC and the NIH. And locally, you may recall a couple of years ago, we advocated for hands-only CPR requirements in our schools. This passed successfully, and while it only takes a minute to learn hands-only CPR, this 20-minute course is easily integrated into a PE or health education class and adds 8,000 lifesavers within our state every year. And we also work with a variety of partners from other sectors to build a culture of health for everyone. Some of these partnerships include the American Diabetes Association. We work with them with our joint Heart of Diabetes program. We also work with the American Cancer Society and the American Lung Association for clean air efforts. And just this month, the American Heart Association announced a $1 million award for funding focused on congenital heart defects, pediatric research. And this is part of a 10-year commitment made by the American Heart Association and the Children's Heart Foundation to invest over $14 million in pediatric research in the next 10 years. But despite all of these victories, heart disease remains our greatest health threat, and stroke is the leading cause of disability. I'm certain we've all had a family member, friend, or even ourselves impacted by heart disease and stroke. By example, Lynn is a heart survivor, and 6 years ago, I survived a small stroke. I have several family members who've been impacted by heart disease and stroke both, and so of course, this is personal. And the American Heart Association works locally because this is personal to so many. And along with the examples I've already mentioned, we work to raise awareness at times like this where it's American Heart Month. And we also work to raise funds to support our work. Typically in February, we host the Heart Ball. And the Heart Ball is typically kind of a fun thing at the end of February, early March. And we look forward to hosting that every year. With the ongoing pandemic, we are reinventing this event, and the American Heart Association has moved them all online. So look for more details. We have pushed this back to April 22nd. It's a Thursday. It'll be a virtual experience along with a public silent auction. And we'd love to have you join us. There are sponsorship opportunities, and we also invite you to join us as a participant. In September, we host the Heart Walk, and we are very much looking forward to being back in person in Main Street Square. You can join us for a 3-mile walk as well as festivities in the square. We'll have entertainment and activities for kids and adults. And you can get involved by walking with your friends and family or forming a team with your coworkers. And there are also sponsorship opportunities tied with that as well. I also invite you to take a look at our American Heart Association South Dakota Facebook page and Instagram page to follow along with more information about these events and ways you can be a part of our local efforts.
Thank you, Robin. We appreciate you speaking today. And also thank you to West River Timing and Scoring for again sponsoring our February virtual luncheon. Now I would like to introduce Lynne Marie Paulson, who has been gracious enough to take the time to speak with us today. For nearly 25 years, Lynn has been employed with UCB Pharma in the biologics field, serving in many capacities, but most recently serves as Business Executive Immunology Specialist. She has been active in creating and leading internal learning platforms, company mentorship programs, marketing platform creation, diversity and inclusion network groups, and has received multiple awards in her career. Locally, she volunteers with the American Heart Association, Heart Ball, Black Hills Heart Walk, and she's a hospice volunteer, as well as served on the board for Rapid City Public School Foundation, the Performing Arts Center, and has chaired the Women of Central Scholarship Brunch and Foundation. She's a Special Olympics volunteer and is very passionate about 2 special projects, Adopt a Senior and Privilege to Serve. You may even recognize her from the Cookies for a Cause initiative. Lynn and her husband, Darren, live in Rapid City with their 2 schnauzers, and in their free time, love to hike, attend sporting events, and travel. Welcome, Lynn. We are excited to hear you speak today.
Thank you, Laura. First of all, thank you to Black Hills leadership for giving me this opportunity and this platform to share my story. You know, it's really humbling, to be very honest with you. I know many of you on the call, and I appreciate you joining in today. I don't think that perhaps, you know, my story is much different. Everybody has a story, so to speak. But a little bit what I want to talk today about is moving from leadership to leading your own ship, and how the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Your cheese does get moved. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about that today. I'd like this to be really informal. Most of you who know me know that's what I would want. So please unmute yourself if you have a question, want to add something at any point. I'd be happy to do that. So before I begin, Laura mentioned actually a lot more than you probably wanted to hear about me. I think it makes me sound much more accomplished than I am, but after this many years, I guess you better have something on your resume. So as you mentioned, I've worked in the biologics field, farm field for 25 years, graduated from Augustana University. It was college at the time. Been married to my husband, Darren, for 27 years and am the proud mom of 2 schnauzers. You can see on the next slide. And the next slide, I actually wanted to just share something that I think is really unique and special, and that I'm very, I don't know, kind of emotional about, and that's the fact that our parents have been married collectively for 122 years as of this last spring. So we've been very blessed by that, along with an amazing family. When they asked me to share my story, I honestly, like I said, I feel like we all have stories, and mine's not any more special or unique. But I was reminded of the first time I thought that perhaps my story did make an impact. I was in Safeway, which if you're from Rapid City, you're always in Safeway. And a woman walked up to me and she said, "You're the heart lady." And I kind of took me back and I said, "Yeah, I had the heart story." And she said, "It saved my life. Because of you, I went in and I caught my atrial fib, and I may not be here without that story." So with that, I feel like it's important for us all to share our stories. It took me a while. I was a little embarrassed. I was a little bit too young to be a heart survivor, to be honest with you. So I'll just start my story. Today is the first time I've shared sort of part 2 of this story. And so for some of you who know the journey, you may not know the end. This quote comes from Who Moved My Cheese, and I think it's really incredibly important. It says, "Life is no straight, easy corridor along which we travel, and unhampered, free and unhampered, but a maze of passages through which we must seek our way, lost and confused, now and again, checked in a blind alley. But always, if we have faith, a door will open for us, not perhaps the one that we ourselves would ever have thought of, but one that ultimately proved good for us." That last sentence, I think, has popped up along my journey, and maybe is why I've read that book 27 times in 25 years. The picture on the right is actually my chest x-ray. So this is kind of where my journey starts. So I'll just move to the next slide. I was actually 42 years old, and life, as I knew, was good. I was the manager of a small biopharma company, managing a team. I had strategized and executed the fastest $1 million launch for a bioequivalent drug in pharma history. I'd won several awards, was commuting between Rapid City and Atlanta, a project I thought had opened many doors. My husband had a position we never dreamed he would be in, and we would say we were on an upward trajectory. Little did I know, my cheese was about to be moved for the first time. It really wasn't just moved, it was eaten. It began slowly and quietly. I would go for a run, all was well. I would be in the shower, and my heart would race. I would be lightheaded sitting at my desk. I'd race to an airplane and be fine. 20 minutes later, only to find myself in my seat, shaking and sweating profusely. I must be tired. I must need water. Maybe I need to eat better. I need to work out more. Probably things you've all said to yourself at one point. I'd lie awake at night and my heart would pound, and I'd still tell myself, stop thinking. And to quote my mom, give it to God and go to sleep. I would try, but my heart would keep racing. Oh gosh, what in the world was I worried about? It started to happen more and more. And with each episode, I find my gumption leaving me tired and exhausted, but convinced it was only my lifestyle. I didn't have time to be tired. Imagine you've all said that to yourself. I scheduled an appointment with my internist. Everything checked out fine. It was suggested I take anti-anxiety meds. My heart, ironically, and my head both said, that's not it. I went about my way, refusing to fill my prescription and instead saying, I'll try yoga, I'll try meditation. That's what I need. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I was on a flight to Atlanta, Georgia, and my left leg swelled to 3 times its size. I really thought, gosh, Lynn, you should have gotten up more. You should have walked around. You should have done some leg twists. You should have drank more water. You should have done all these things. I got to my Atlanta office and my colleagues sent me home. Looking back, stupidly, home meant my apartment down the street, not to get back on an airplane and fly back to South Dakota, but that's just what I did. Another doctor visit, actually had an ultrasound done, nothing was wrong. A day back later, I got back on the plane and headed out. I imagine that some of you see little snippets of yourselves in this story, fighting through, pushing on, thinking it must be this, it must be that. It became sort of a pattern of exhaustion, heart pounding, and it continued for several months. I'd always been physically active, and I can recall one time my husband had flown down to Atlanta and we were climbing Stone Mountain. If you've been to Georgia, you've probably been there. And I kept having to stop. A couple hundred feet, stop, a couple hundred feet. Didn't even dawn on me that actually something was wrong, but I should have known. The following week, I was riding with a rep in Colorado, and it was a beautiful day in beautiful country. Ironically, we had lunch at Five Guys Burgers. And I'll have to be honest with you, it's the first and last time I've eaten at Five Guys. We actually laughed about it being a heart attack on a bun. Little did I know that that night I would check into my hotel, get on a treadmill, and I'm sure you've all seen those little hookups where it reads your heart rate. And I remember looking down and the treadmill said 189 beats per minute. My first thought, this is a junk piece of equipment at this hotel. They need to upgrade their fitness center. That has to be wrong. So pretty angry, I got off the treadmill and I went to my room. That night I'd laid in bed and my heart was pounding so hard and so fast. I literally could see it through my chest. I could feel it, I could see it. It was the first time that I thought something was wrong, but it didn't dawn on me it was my heart. Another pretty smart move by me, I called my husband and he said, you need to come home. So the next morning I flew back to Rapid City, got on another plane, flew back to Rapid City. He had made me an appointment with an internist who was a family friend, sort of did us a favor and got us in. I remember going into the waiting room and I couldn't stop crying. I didn't really know why. I just couldn't stop. I thought I was losing control of myself. Just get it together. That's what I kept thinking. A physical therapist friend who happened to work in the office came over to say hello to us. And I remember crying so hard that honestly, I wet my pants. That's the truth. I was so scared. So we went back and I don't remember I remember the doctor coming in and he went behind me to take my heart rate. And as my husband says, it's a look he will never forget. He knew something was wrong. I still thought I had to get some sleep. I had to be home for a little bit, take a break, those kinds of things. So they put me on a heart monitor and 24 hours later, we returned it to Regional or Monument Health to the heart lab there. And by the time I got home, which was about 5 to 7 minutes, I had a message saying that I needed to return immediately to the hospital and check myself in. Here is one of those funny moments that probably could have made the situation worse, but on the way, I insisted that we go through the McDonald's drive up. Any of you that know me, this won't surprise you, to get a large Diet Coke because I was afraid I wouldn't have one for a day or two. And so we made that stop, we got in, and I was told that I was in atrial fib. I have to be honest, nope, the voice inside my head said, it can't be. they hooked me up, they admitted me, hooked me up, and I remember looking up at the monitor and it said 192 beats per minute. Once again, just as the hotel equipment, to be honest with you, I thought, oh, regional, you need to update your equipment. I still didn't believe it. So they put me on a series of meds, which didn't help to slow down the atrial fib. And it was later determined that I would be cardioverted. And for those of you, many of you on the call are in the heart arena, so you understand what that is. But essentially, it's the paddles. I was going to be paddled. I remember going into the room and saying, I'm very superstitious. And I said to my cardiologist, are you good at this? And he said, I'm pretty good, Lynn. And I said, that's not good enough. I need you to knock on wood. If you've been in a cath lab, you know it's completely stainless steel. There's no wood. And I made him do it. I made him find wood inside a drawer, and he knocked and he came back over. And it's the first time in this journey that I remember being scared. And I looked up at the clock and it was 12:12 p.m. And I thought, oh my goodness, that will be the time on my death certificate. Well, I woke up and here's another, I hope you laugh moment in this story. I woke up and the nurse was over me and she said, Lynn, your brothers are here to see you. I don't have brothers. I have two sisters. I have no brothers. And she said, no, your brothers are here. And in this moment flash, I thought, I've died and gone to heaven. I have two brothers. And in walked two twin brothers, 20 years older than me, who had finagled their way in to see me. And it's a moment that we still laugh about. And not really angels, little devils that snuck in. So as you saw in the previous picture, an AED device was inserted to monitor, record, and essentially download my daily rhythms to check that I didn't go back into atrial fib. It was the first time in my life that I had to sit back and say, you know, I reside in Rapid City, this great community, but I don't live here. And so here is where a little bit of my cheese not only was moved, but I found new cheese. And so the first call came from Barb Vargo with the hospice house. And she said, Lynn, I know you've got some free time on your hand. Would you consider volunteering? And so I slowly stuffed envelopes, decorated the waiting room, and eventually sort of got promoted to my own shift, baking cookies, sitting with families, that kind of thing. And I remember thinking how this place of what you would think was sadness was such a place of joy. People had no regrets. They knew what was important. They really just had this calmness about them. And I think it was in that space that I realized, even when my cheese was moved, I could give back, but also how much I got back from doing that. So I volunteered there. Several months later, as you can see on this slide, I was driving down Jackson Boulevard. At this point, I was on short-term disability. I couldn't go back to work. And I saw a sign for the Heart Walk. And I have to be honest, I didn't consider myself even then a survivor. It took me a long time to wrap my arms around that. But I thought, what the heck? I haven't got my miles in today. That was probably my biggest motivation. So it's a beautiful day. I'm going to join in. And I started walking. I met a gal on the walk. We started talking, and she ended up being one of the volunteers on the committee with Robin. And she invited me to their next meeting to sort of wrap up the Heart Walk, but start discussing the heart ball that was starting. Little did I know that another conversation, just like the one with Barb Vargo, would change my life. I got involved with the AHA, American Heart Association, the Black Hills group. And through this, I have developed an incredible network of friends It has given me a place to give back to my community. And the most ironic piece about it is the woman who I ended up chatting with on the Heart Walk, come to find out, was the woman who had read my heart monitor about a year before that. So I really realized that time comes full circle. Before I progress, I'd be a little remiss if I didn't share some stats that I think are pretty staggering. The first one is that one person dies every 36 seconds from cardiovascular disease. So I'm looking at my watch. From the time that we've been on this call until now, almost 22 Americans have died of heart disease. That's absolutely staggering. The next slide talks about the fact that heart disease kills more Americans than all, and I mean all, cancers combined. It's preventable. You can know your stats. You can do all the right things. You can do everything you can to not become a statistic. And I recognize that I had done the right things, and there are those cases, but I also firmly believe that because I did some things prior to becoming a heart survivor, it also helped me survive. It helped me come back. And I think that's really key. 1 in 3 women, I know there's quite a few women on this call. If you do the math, probably 7 or 8 of you will die of heart disease. I mean, that's the reality of what we're dealing with. So please keep that in mind, know your stats. That's my plea for you today. And then I'm going to go on to another piece of my journey that happened through this. I talked about the fact that I had developed this sense of community. My husband worked at Central High School. I became involved with some things there, with a scholarship brunch and some different things. Sort of feeling like I was back in the game. And then I planned, and God laughed again at me. My cheese got moved again. So at that point, here's where page 2 of my journey started. I began feeling lightheaded in a different way. My heart monitor showed nothing. It was being recorded daily. I would pass out randomly and without warning. I have to be honest, I hid this for a bit, as long as I could, to be honest. I was back traveling. I would pass out in hotel rooms. I would wake up. I think I was pretty darn lucky, guys, that nothing more serious happened to me than bruises and bumps and cracked rib here or there kind of thing. Believe it or not, though, I thought it was nothing, and I thought I needed to drink more water, have Gatorade, do those things. So my cardiologist finally broke down, told my husband about it after he found me in the bathroom floor, and we went to see my cardiologist. And here's where something new happens. My cheese. They suspected what's called neurocardiogenic syncope. And it's essentially, they believe in my case that my new heart rhythm wasn't recognized by my head. So there was a disconnect, and I would just pass out randomly. So they do what's called a tilt test. And if you've not heard of that or don't know what it is, essentially what they did is they put me on a table and they tilt you upside down and see how long it takes for you to pass out. And essentially not only how long, but how fast and some of those things. So I woke up 18 seconds later to sounds of clapping from my cath team, who had been my team throughout this whole journey. And they said, "You failed. It's fantastic. You have a diagnosis." And I did. But this one was even harder for me to wrap my arms around. They suggested some sort of trainings at home. So my husband, the ever-present coach in my world, took on the task of coaching me. And what I would do is I would have to stand against a wall, and he would time me to see how long I could stand without passing out. And I would have to do different exercises, squeeze your legs, squeeze your hands, try to stay upright. I look back, and one of the most offensive lines he ever said to me during this journey, but became sort of my mantra, is that he said, to be honest, Lynn, some days are going to be better, some days aren't. And it was pretty hard to hear, but I realized when you're on these journeys, any of you who have been through a hardship, there are better days and there are harder days. And they don't necessarily go A to Z and just keep getting better. You take backward steps. And so each time I would pass out, I would have an incredible headache. I'd be exhausted. And it kind of became a downward spiral where as much as my friends, they would bring me helmets, they would bring me just different things, food, love. It became so powerful that honestly, I couldn't get out of bed some days. I couldn't drive anymore because of the passing out. And so I would sneak drives in, and it became very apparent one day. I went to somewhere I always go and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find my way. I would leave the car door open. I would leave the back hatch of my car open and drive down the street with groceries flying out. And sort of the kicker of it all, so to speak, is when I called the police from Safeway again, saying that my car had been stolen. In a sense, I had just driven a different car. I had nothing upstairs. It was a fog. So I went to mail with the blessing of my local docs, who I absolutely adore, and the diagnosis was confirmed. And it was there that I laid in bed, and I thought about the hospice patients, and I decided I got to do this. I have to lead my own ship. And so I woke up with a little bit different attitude and decided to go to what's called Vestibular Rehab. They teach you things like I had lost peripheral vision. I had lost the ability to bend down and stand up. Picket fences, lights through picket fences would make me pass out. Movie theaters, loud noises, you name it. So I had a wonderful therapist named Quinn. She was a Montana girl through and through, no BS with her. And she was just what I needed. And so we started moving through these exercises, and she sent me this card. And I always think about this, and I want you to take a peek at this right now. If you're in your own journey, your own struggles, even though the journey might be long, you're ahead. You're moving that way, and be proud of that. So after 6 months of not hitting the deck, as she called it, I got my driver's license back, and I had been placed on long-term disability, so nowhere to go back to work. Cheese had been moved again. And I'm just going to nutshell what happened next. I had a friend who asked for some snow boots, asked if we could find snow boots for a family in need. I posted it on Facebook. My neighbor came within an hour, dropped off snow boots. And as I thanked her, she said to me, you know, Lynn, it's a privilege to give. And for some reason, I couldn't get that out of my head. And it kept resonating with me over and over. So fast forward 24 hours, and I got a call. The boss who had taken my position, the person who I had hired years ago, had a job opening, offered it to me. I took it back. But this time I went back with a difference. I knew that it was a career, but it was also a means for me to help patients and to give back into this community of Rapid City that I had now become entrenched in and had absolutely fallen in love with. So this is where Privilege to Give takes legs. So what we started doing is, it just started small. Most of you know I baked cookies for years and sold those and donated to different things. But we started this Privilege to Give, and it's an amazing village of people. It's a small Facebook site where we present needs that we're aware of, individual families, young moms, cancer patients. And each month, we would sell t-shirts, and we would pick a cause. We would give money to that local cause, the Hope Center, Allied Art Fund, Special Olympics. And then it grew into these requests. And clothing, shelter, food. These are a couple of pictures of drives that we've held just in the past couple of weeks, actually. It is something I'm more proud of than any work accomplishment, because it is a team. It's an amazing team of people. To date, we've given over $25,000 in donations, in goods, in clothing, and warm coats to the community. And just in the past 3 months, $5,000 worth of food and toiletries and house supplies have gone out to some amazingly wonderful families in need. And so I'm incredibly proud of this. Just last night, so as I was walking through this, a woman called me about a young cancer patient, ovarian cancer patient, who had a preemie baby, found out about her diagnosis during her pregnancy. And she is donating $1,000 to this young woman. And, you know, if you don't believe in karma or serendipity or all of those things, come to find out her daughter, who's 21, had just survived ovarian cancer and she wanted to give back. So, you know, I think I talk about privilege to give, but it's my privilege to live. And so that's where I think these stories go hand in hand. And so privilege to give has been kind of my baby. And we only have one ask. We tell all the recipients in this program that we've all had hard times. And so when they get out of their this part of their journey, all we ask is that they pay it forward. And because we all have been there. So that's privilege to give, one small way to give back. And then the next one, you know, I talk about just daring to believe you can make a significant difference just by doing little things. The next kind of pet project that I'm incredibly honored to share with you today is one that was kind of initiated by a statement my mom made to me. So my whole life, my mom and I would exchange at minimum 3 cards a week, at least. When COVID hit, she would send me a card every day. March 20th, 2020 was the start. I have them all. So she talked to me a little bit and she would say to me, you know, Lynn, I can't imagine being these seniors that are in a facility or they're isolated or they're lonely. Wouldn't they love a card? And so we started this little Facebook page called Adopt a Senior, and you can adopt someone and continue your communication with them, or you can simply, we post milestones, birthdays, anniversaries. We post loss, people who've lost a spouse or a loved one. And this picture, I owe credit to my sister who's on the call for this one. Sorry. So this is my mom, my dad, and mom. Mm-hmm. My mom is now one of those people. I'm so sorry, you guys. The loneliness that these people face, and I have just seen firsthand. My dad gets these cards, and he does this funny thing where he writes the date on it that he got it, and when he read it, and he files them alphabetically. So I'm incredibly proud of this program, and I just hope that I'm going off my script now. I hope that you all realize that you can make a difference with a simple card. Just saying hello. Yeah, you know, my mom has been in isolation. She was airlifted on February 4th. And I think she gets these cards, my dad gets these cards, and we've celebrated other parents' 89th, 90th birthdays. So, you know, reach out. Find a small way that you can give back. It doesn't have to be huge. We've sent out approximately 1,700 cards since we started this journey on May 28th, on my parents' wedding anniversary. So here here's where I have to get to the point where I thank you as you're incredible leaders in your communities and your jobs and what you do. And, if you know my husband, this won't surprise you. So he would say to me at this point, well, that's all great and hunky-dory, Lynn, but people have to pay bills and they have kids to send to college and they have retirement funds to pay. You can't just be in community service, Lynn. It doesn't pay the bills. And so that's where I'd like to talk to you about writing your own mission statement. And it's something that I started doing about 5 years ago, and it's not hard. I'll get this form to your group, and it's just kind of discovering yourself and what is your mission and how can that professional mission tie into your personal mission. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Let's say your kids are involved in music or drama. Maybe your mission statement is to serve on a board there. I know there's a couple of you on this call that have done just that. It fuels your passion, to give back, but it also fuels your professional passion. I think to have sort of that energy. Just give yourself one way you want to give back. Giving back in the different manners that I've been able to do has not held me back professionally. I think if anything, it's driven me harder, perhaps in a way, to balance my life, to say, okay, this is important and the bills need to be paid, but how can you feed your fire? How can you fuel your energy? Gas tanks can get pretty low, guys. I know many of you on here give. Sometimes you just gotta fill it up. And so find those things that fill your tank, fill your soul, fill your mission statement. It hasn't stopped my professional success. I think, there's kind of a fun little thing. Some of you know that I do on my birthday. I share a birthday with a good friend named Margot in our community. And when we turned 50, we weren't really crazy about it. So we decided to do a 50 by 50, collect 50 items. We've done bus passes. We've done feminine hygiene products. Even if it's just once a year, find something to remind you that it is a privilege to be alive. It is a privilege to give. And that we live in an amazing community. I think I love Rapid City. I could not love something more. It's been just a terrific place to be. And this quote on kindness, I think, really sometimes I have this on the board in my wall, on my wall in my office, and it says, "Loan me in someone your strength instead of reminding them of their weakness." And I think that's really where privilege to give and giving back takes hold. I have no doubt, again, that my cheese is going to move again. It seems to move a lot. Your cheese will move. Your cheeses may be moved. And I'd like to think that at the end of the day, if you know my favorite cheese is nacho cheese on chips, that at the end of the day, that's the bowl of cheese that I'm going to find. And I hope that for all of you. And I just thank you for this opportunity. And I'll leave you with absolutely my favorite quote. And it is just simply live in such a way that if someone spoke badly about you, no one would believe it. Thank you, Rapid City. Appreciate you. And if there's any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you, Lynn, so much. What an incredible story. We appreciate you sharing that today. If anyone does have any questions, I know that there's some comments coming up in the chat box. But if you do have any questions, please, unmute or submit it through the chat. And I'm sure Lynn would be happy to answer those.
I did just get a text message. Yes, privilege to give is misspelled on Facebook. I will be, yes. So if you're looking for it, I can send it out through the group. intentionally misspelled because privilege to give the right way was taken by someone else. So I will send it out if you're interested in taking a peek at that site, or if you have someone in need, certainly send us the request and the need, and we can send it out to our village.
We did get a question. How can people get involved with your groups?
Well, Privilege to Give, that is, as I mentioned, it's really just a Facebook site. You ask to be a member, we let you in, and we just post the needs as they come. And it's a very, very casual, you know, do you have soup to spare? Do you have boxes of stuffing? Do you have toilet paper? It's really very simple. We pick it up, you can drop it off. We have a couple places we let people leave things at doorsteps. And then Adopted Seniors, the same, it's on Facebook. Again, just ask to join in, and we post as we get requests. We post them, and we anonymously post, we message you the information. We try to keep everyone private in their needs. And again, in both cases, not only can you actively take part, but if you have someone in need, please let us know. Or if you have a senior or someone who's isolated that you think could use a boost to our group, please let me know, and we'll be happy to share that information.
Thank you. Another question came in is, when you have a down moment, what is one thing you do to stay positive?
Dogs. You guys all know me. Dogs. Walk a lot. And you know, I'm trying to just be better this year. I don't know if you can see it, my board behind me, grace. Every year I pick a word, and I'm finding that when I'm down, most of the time it's because I'm disappointed in the world around me, and something upsets me that way. And so I'm just trying to live with grace a little bit more this year, and trying to look at things through the lens of other people. And sometimes I find that maybe my assumptions are wrong, and it sort of lifts me up to find that it's their story and I have to hear it too.
A couple more came through. What advice do you have for people who want to tackle a big challenge to overcome?
Bite-sized pieces. I had a manager once who would tell me that if the project's big, Lynn, you need to break it down, because I think that that internal success that you have as you're going along the way, you've accomplished this, it makes you think you can keep going. And don't be afraid to ask for help. That is, gosh, somebody reached out through Privilege to Give the other day for simply prayers for something they were going out. And I realized at that moment, the hardest thing to do is to ask for help. And it takes great strength. So never be afraid to do that.
All right. And then what would be your best way to get someone to volunteer for the first time?
Voluntold. Sometimes voluntold. You know, I think that all of you on this call are doers and givers. So I don't think that it's necessarily anybody on this call, but I think that people need something very specific. And that's what I found through the heart piece, heart walk, people need a task. What do you exactly need me to do versus just saying, can you help? So giving people an exact project or a task, I think helps them initially get involved.
Mm-hmm. And then who do you consider mentors in your life, and how did they come into your life?
Wow. Oh, you know, a lot of, if you've read the book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, I would highly recommend that book. Not always just for its spiritual sense, but it makes you realize that there are people that quietly come and go in your path, and they change its course. So I would, you know, I think that obviously my mom, for a variety of reasons, but I've had amazing coaches in my life. And, you know, I like to not call them necessarily mentors, but sponsors. So people that when you're not in the room, they have your seat at the table for you. And I think it's important to develop those people. And I've just had them along the way, and they've shared my journey. So Robin, who's on the call, who introduced me, not by accident. She has been a great sponsor for me in my life. And I'm another gift that's come through this incredibly hard journey is her friendship.
All right. I don't know if you were able to view the chat box, but there's a lot of love coming to you in that chat. So
I loaded the room with cheerleaders. Excellent.
You're very inspiring. Now, if there's no more questions, we can go ahead and do the book giveaway.
All right.
We will have you pick a number between 1 and 26. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share about that book? I know you mentioned it quite a bit in your presentation, but
I would just suggest you guys that if you've read it, a lot of you probably read it, reread it. I read it again in 2020, and with all that was happening with COVID, our cheese got moved, no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I told Laura the other day, I wrote down how many times I've read it, in several times. And I would say every time I read it, it's a different point in my journey. So I would just say, read it if you haven't read it. Hoping this goes to somebody who hasn't gotten the book. So I'm going to pick number 3, Laura.
The number 3. Okay, we got to let the little background do its magic here. And then we will mail this book out directly to that individual.
Awesome. Great.
Number 3 is D. Wald. Congratulations. We will reach out to you and get an address so we can get that mailed out.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you again, Lynn, for speaking. We appreciate it so much. And we want to also thank our attendees today. We look forward to seeing you all virtually for our next luncheon, which will be held on Wednesday, March 17th. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the heat wave.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining in.
Thank you.